As a Man Thinketh, Rebuilt for Modern Life. 7 Lessons from James Allen's classic on the Power of Thought. More than a century ago, James Allen published a small book with an enormous claim. Your thoughts do not merely pass through your life, they participate in creating it. The book was called As a Man Thinketh. It appeared in 1903, long before social media, productivity apps, cognitive behavioral therapy, or the modern language of habits and identity. Yet, its central question feels urgent now. What happens when the same thoughts are repeated so often that they become the atmosphere in which you live? Allen's answer was uncompromising. He argued that thought shapes character, character guides action, action influences circumstance, and repeated choices eventually become destiny. Some of his language is inspiring. Some of it is too absolute. Poverty, illness, discrimination, grief, and misfortune cannot be explained away as products of incorrect thinking. Life contains systems, accidents, biology, and other people's choices. Any philosophy that blames a suffering person for every circumstance has confused personal power with total control. But rejecting the exaggeration should not make us miss the insight. We do not control everything that happens. We do influence what receives our attention, what meaning we assign to events, what behavior we repeat, and what we do next. That influence compounds. This episode is not a reading of Allen's book. It is an original modern interpretation, 7 lessons worth keeping, the limitations worth correcting, and practical ways to use the ideas without turning them into magical thinking. The purpose is not to convince yourself that thought controls the universe. It is to become more deliberate about the part of life thought actually controls. Your orientation toward the next choice. Why this small book survived. As a Man Thinketh arrived during an era fascinated by character, self-mastery, spiritual discipline, and the possibilities of the individual mind. It was not written as a technical psychology book. It was a philosophical essay, compact and intentionally direct. Allen did not fill it with biographies, research studies, or elaborate systems. He returned to one principle from several directions. The inner pattern eventually becomes visible in the outer life. That simplicity helped the book travel. Readers could carry its central idea into work, health, ambition, relationships, and spiritual life. Later, self-help writers would develop similar themes using the language of subconscious belief, positive thinking, mindset, identity, visualization, and habit. The vocabulary changed. The appeal remained. People want to know that they are not permanently trapped inside their current reactions. They want to believe that character can be developed rather than merely discovered. They want a point of leverage when circumstances feel larger than they are. Allen offered that leverage in thought. The danger of a simple principle is that it can be stretched into an explanation for everything. The strength of a simple principle is that it can be remembered when life becomes complicated. Our task is to keep it within its proper boundaries. Thought is not a supernatural ordering system. It is the place where attention is organized, meaning is assigned, and many actions begin. That is already powerful enough. Lesson 1. Thought becomes character through repetition. A passing thought is not an identity. Everyone experiences envy, fear, resentment, fantasy, and doubt. A single thought does not reveal your deepest nature. But repeated thoughts become familiar routes. The mind learns where to travel. If you repeatedly interpret feedback as humiliation, defensiveness becomes easier. If you repeatedly search for evidence that people cannot be trusted, suspicion becomes your default. If you repeatedly ask what can be learned, curiosity becomes available under pressure. Allen described character as the complete sum of thought. Modern language would make that claim more precise. Character is shaped by the patterns of attention, interpretation, and behavior we repeatedly reinforce. Thought matters because it does not remain abstract. It influences the emotional response you rehearse. That response influences what you do. What you do becomes evidence about who you are. Imagine two employees receiving the same criticism. The first thinks, "They have finally discovered that I do not belong here." The second thinks, "This is uncomfortable information about one part of my work." Neither thought proves anything. Both are interpretations, but each interpretation creates a different next action. The first person hides, over-explains, or avoids difficult assignments. The second asks for an example, adjusts the work, and returns with a stronger version. Months later, their circumstances may look different, not because thought magically changed reality, but because thought repeatedly directed behavior. To apply this lesson, do not police every thought. Identify the sentences you rehearse. People always ignore me. I ruin every opportunity. Nothing changes. Then make the statement accurate, rather than artificially positive. I was interrupted twice in that meeting. Next time I will finish the point and ask for a response. I handled that opportunity poorly. I can identify the decision that caused the problem. This has not changed yet. I need a different action or a longer timeline. Accuracy is more powerful than empty optimism because accuracy creates options. The first lesson is not that you become whatever crosses your mind. You become more practiced at whatever you repeatedly entertain and enact. Lesson 2. The mind is a garden, but you are not the weather. Allen used one of the book's most enduring images, the mind as a garden. A garden can be cultivated or neglected. Something will grow either way. In modern terms, attention is limited soil. Whatever receives repeated attention receives more opportunity to influence perception. This is why an hour of outrage before breakfast changes the emotional texture of a morning. It is why repeatedly comparing your private life with someone else's public performance produces dissatisfaction. It is why a mind filled exclusively with threats begins to detect threats in ambiguous situations. Cultivation means choosing what you repeatedly expose yourself to. It means noticing which conversations leave you energized, which accounts turn insecurity into a business model, and which forms of entertainment continue echoing after the screen is dark. But the garden metaphor needs a correction. You control some planting. You do not control the weather. Trauma can arrive without permission. Grief is not a weed you failed to remove. Anxiety and depression are not evidence of weak moral gardening. Some thoughts appear because a nervous system is trying to protect you, because a body is ill, or because a painful event actually happened. The goal is not to feel guilty for what appears. The goal is to decide what receives continued care. When a frightening thought appears, you can ask, is this a fact, a prediction, or a memory? Does this thought require action now? What information would make it more accurate? What would I advise someone I respect to do next? You may not prevent the first thought. You can influence the second thought, the third hour, and the behavior that follows. That is cultivation without self-blame. Lesson 3. Thought shapes circumstance, but does not explain everything. Alan believed that outer conditions reflect inner thought. This is the book's most famous idea, and it's most dangerous when treated literally. Circumstances have many causes. A qualified person may be denied an opportunity because of prejudice. A careful person may become ill. A responsible family may face disaster after one unexpected expense. No honest philosophy should turn misfortune into a verdict on someone's mind. Yet thought and circumstance do interact. Your beliefs affect what you attempt. They affect what you tolerate. They affect which opportunities you notice and which risks you refuse to examine. They influence whether one rejection becomes information or identity. Suppose someone believes people like me never become leaders. That belief may cause them to avoid visible assignments, remain silent around senior colleagues, and decline opportunities that feel unfamiliar. The belief does not prove the world is fair. It does help preserve the condition it predicts. A better question then, did my thoughts create this circumstance? Is, which part of this situation can my thinking help me influence? Perhaps the answer is preparation. Perhaps it is a boundary. Perhaps it is asking for help, documenting unfair treatment, learning a skill, leaving an unhealthy environment, or accepting what cannot be changed today. Personal responsibility is useful when it points toward leverage. It becomes cruelty when it assigns total blame. Keep the leverage, reject the blame. Lesson 4. Your body listens to the stories you repeat. Alan connected thought with health and the body. He sometimes stated the relationship too simply, but the basic connection is real enough to recognize in ordinary experience. Think about the body before a difficult conversation. The event has not begun, yet an imagined version is already affecting breathing, muscle tension, heart rate, and sleep. The mind rehearses danger. The body prepares for it. This does not mean every illness is produced by thought. It means thought is one signal among many that the body responds to. Repeated rumination can keep a completed event physiologically active. You leave the meeting, but the meeting does not leave you. You replay one sentence in the car, during dinner, and in bed. Each replay invites the body to participate again. The solution is not to command yourself to relax. Give thought a container. Write down what happened. Separate facts from interpretations. Identify one action. Schedule the action. Then mark the analysis complete for the day. For example, fact, my proposal was rejected. Interpretation, they do not respect me. Alternative, they objected to the cost and asked for a smaller version. Action, build the smaller version by Wednesday. Once an actionable thought has produced an action, continued rumination is not additional preparation. It is repetition without movement. Care for the body directly as well. Sleep, movement, nutrition, medical care, and human connection cannot be replaced with positive sentences. Thought is part of health. It is not the whole of health. Lesson 5. Purpose organizes attention. Alan argued that thought becomes powerful when joined to purpose. Without purpose, the mind drifts among fear, distraction, appetite, and other people's priorities. Purpose does not need to be a grand life mission. It can be a direction clear enough to organize today. Finish the certification. Repair the relationship. Build financial stability. Become the kind of manager people can trust. Create one excellent body of work. A clear purpose changes the questions the mind asks. Without purpose, what do I feel like doing? With purpose, What action serves the direction I chose? Without purpose, why is this uncomfortable? With purpose, is this discomfort part of the work or a warning that the direction is wrong? Purpose makes sacrifice intelligible. It allows you to decline one option without feeling that you rejected every possible life. But purpose can also become rigid. People sometimes remain loyal to a goal after new evidence has made the goal harmful, impossible, or irrelevant. Determination is not refusing all revision. It is staying committed to a meaningful direction while updating the route. Use a 90-day purpose. Write one sentence describing what matters most in the next 3 months. Then identify 3 repeated actions that support it. If the purpose is stronger communication, the actions might be preparing one clear recommendation before each meeting, asking one direct question, and reviewing one difficult conversation each week. Purpose becomes real when it appears on a calendar. Lesson 6. Achievement begins as an inner permission. Allen wrote that achievement grows from thought joined with disciplined effort. This idea is often reduced to visualization, as though imagining success causes the universe to deliver it. That is not the useful version. The useful version is that action rarely continues toward an outcome the mind considers impossible or forbidden. Before attempting something difficult, people often need inner permission. Permission to be a beginner. Permission to be seen trying. Permission to outgrow a familiar role. Permission to disappoint people who benefited from their hesitation. Imagine someone who wants to speak publicly but thinks, "I am not a confident person." That identity turns every nervous sensation into proof. Their hands shake, so they cancel. They cancel, so they gain no experience. The lack of experience preserves the identity. Replace the identity claim with a training claim. I am learning to speak while nervous. Now shaking hands do not disprove the goal. They are part of the training environment. Inner permission must be followed by external practice. Visualization can help rehearse a behavior. It cannot substitute for the behavior. Affirmations can direct attention. They cannot perform the repetition. Think in ways that make disciplined action possible. Then act long enough to collect better evidence. The thought-to-action loop. To use Allen's philosophy without reducing it to slogans, follow the complete loop. Thought, emotion, action, result, interpretation. Then thought again. Suppose you are invited to apply for a role that feels beyond your experience. The first thought is, "I am not ready." That thought produces anxiety and embarrassment. The emotion encourages avoidance. You do not apply. The result is that you gain no interview experience and receive no new information about your readiness. Then the mind interprets the result. See, people like me do not get those roles. The original thought returns with more authority even though it was never tested. Now change one part of the loop. I may not be selected, but applying will show me what the market expects. The anxiety may remain. The action changes anyway. You apply, revise your resume, speak with a recruiter, or discover a skill gap. The result is information. The new interpretation becomes, readiness can be measured and developed. This is how thought influences a life without magic. It changes the behavior that produces evidence. When you feel trapped in a pattern, map the loop. What thought appeared? What emotion followed? What action did the emotion encourage? What result did the action produce? How did you interpret that result? Then find the smallest point where the loop can change. Sometimes it is the thought. Sometimes the thought remains, and you change the action anyway. You can think, "This will be awkward," and still begin the conversation. You can think, "They may reject me," and still make the request. You can think, "I do not feel motivated," and still work for 20 minutes. The mind does not have to become perfectly convinced before behavior becomes available. That correction matters, because waiting for ideal thoughts can become another form of avoidance. Useful thinking does not eliminate all resistance. It helps you move intelligently while resistance is present. Lesson 7. Serenity is not passivity. Alan ended the book with serenity. To him, calmness was a sign of self-command, a person no longer thrown in every direction by impulse and circumstance. Modern culture often mistakes urgency for importance. The fastest response appears committed. The strongest reaction appears courageous. The loudest certainty appears intelligent. But many costly decisions are made because someone could not tolerate 10 quiet seconds. Serenity is the ability to create space between stimulus and response. It is reading the message twice before answering. It is asking one question before defending yourself. It is allowing anger to deliver information without giving it control of the keyboard. It is remaining present while another person is disappointed. Calm does not mean accepting injustice, avoiding conflict, or suppressing emotion. A calm person can leave. A calm person can say no. A calm person can document what happened, confront misconduct, and take decisive action. The difference is that action is selected rather than discharged. Practice a deliberate delay. For low-stakes irritation, wait 10 breaths. For an emotional email, wait 30 minutes. For a decision that changes a year of your life, sleep before committing when circumstances allow. Delay is not always wisdom, but it often reveals which thoughts remain convincing after the nervous system settles. The modern correction. Thought is powerful, not omnipotent. As a man thinketh survives, because it gives the reader agency. It says that inner life matters, and that disciplined thought can become disciplined action. That message is worth preserving. But agency is not omnipotence. You can think carefully and still lose. You can prepare well and still be rejected. You can maintain hope and still experience grief. You can make every responsible choice available to you and still encounter circumstances you did not create. A mature philosophy must hold two truths at once. Your choices matter. You are not responsible for everything. The first truth protects you from helplessness. The second protects you from shame. Positive thinking is not the same as clear thinking. One of the easiest ways to misunderstand Alan is to replace disciplined thought with forced positivity. Forced positivity refuses information. Everything will work out. Failure is impossible. I have no reason to be afraid. These statements may feel energizing for a moment, but they become fragile when reality disagrees. Clear thinking is different. This may fail, so I will limit the risk. I am afraid because the outcome matters. I cannot guarantee success, but I can prepare the next step. Clear thinking does not make pessimism a virtue. It makes reality the starting point. It notices opportunities without erasing dangers. It acknowledges pain without turning pain into permanent identity. It separates a difficult season from a doomed life. If a thought makes you feel powerful but discourages you from checking facts, seeking medical care, reading the contract, studying the numbers, or listening to qualified criticism, it is not serving you. If a thought makes you feel responsible for events no human being could fully control, it is not serving you. If a thought produces one practical action, a more accurate interpretation, or greater willingness to face reality, it may be useful even if it is not cheerful. The purpose of thought is not to decorate reality. It is to meet reality with enough clarity to respond well. When life is difficult, do not ask whether your thoughts secretly caused every problem. Ask, what is true? What is mine to influence? What support do I need? What action is available now? What must be accepted, at least for today? These questions preserve responsibility without pretending control. The 7-day thought practice. For the next 7 days, turn Allen's philosophy into observation rather than belief. On day 1, record repeated sentences. Write down the 3 thoughts you hear most often during difficulty. Do not correct them yet. Notice them. On day 2, separate fact from interpretation. Choose one stressful event. Write what a camera could have recorded, then write the meaning your mind added. On day 3, improve accuracy. Replace one absolute thought with a statement that is specific, honest, and actionable. On day 4, examine your mental environment. Notice what enters your attention before work, during breaks, and before sleep. Remove one source that reliably produces agitation without useful action. On day 5, choose a 90-day purpose. Write one direction and 3 repeated behaviors that support it. On day 6, practice inner permission. Do one small action that your old identity would avoid. Ask the question. Share the draft. Begin badly on purpose. On day 7, practice serenity. Create one deliberate pause between a strong emotion and a response. Use the pause to choose, not merely delay. At the end of the week, do not ask whether every thought was positive. Ask whether your thinking became more accurate, more deliberate, and more useful. Conclusion. The next thought and the next action. James Allen's book is small enough to read in an afternoon, but its central idea can occupy a lifetime. Thought matters, not because every thought becomes reality, not because suffering proves mental failure, not because the universe is obligated to reward optimism. Thought matters because it shapes attention. Attention influences interpretation. Interpretation guides action. Repeated action develops character. Character changes what you are prepared to build, endure, refuse, and attempt. You are not the sole author of circumstance, but you are a participant in what happens next. Cultivate the mind without blaming it for the weather. Choose a purpose without becoming rigid. Give yourself permission, then practice. Seek serenity without becoming passive. And when an old thought tells you that nothing can change, do not answer with fantasy. Answer with one accurate sentence and one available action. The action may be small. Small actions repeated are how ideas leave the mind and enter a life. This has been an original Signal&Status modern book breakdown, based on James Allen's public domain classic As a Man Thinketh, first published in 1903. Follow for more long-form explorations of timeless self-help books, rebuilt with modern psychology, honest criticism, and practical application.